classy but sassy ladies of Zeta by name. I am a Sigma chapter. See, I got it. And I want to thank you for being accommodating, gracious, and beautiful. Not beautiful just physically, but beautiful because you care enough about your community to do something like this and talk about an issue that's so important. That really matters, and it really makes you beautiful, even if you did pledge the wrong sorority. Okay, so, Young, Black, and Unarmed. All three of them mean something different for African Americans in our society, but all three of them mean something similar. I'm going to do this one backward. I'm going to just take 3 points and then I'm going away because I'm old and I can't see and I got to go home. But I'm going to start off with being unarmed, then black, then young. I'm going to try for 5 minutes each. Somebody time keep me. When I have 5 minutes left, please let me know. So start with unarmed. We'll talk about Michael Brown, African Americans killed by government officials, and the fact that these people who are killed are not just poor and are often unarmed. We all know, we're all familiar with what took place with Michael Brown. But what you need to understand is one of at least 4 unarmed black men died at the hands of police in the last 2 weeks alone. 2 weeks at the hands of police. Black men didn't just start dying at the hands of police this month. Black men have been dying by the hands of police for quite some time. I'll take you all the way back to Martin Luther King. Raise your hand if you know Martin Luther King was killed via a government conspiracy. Yeah. Martin Luther King was gunned down by the government. This was found in a court of law. Young, black, and unarmed. Michael Brown is a clear example of those killed by government officials or representatives. In 2007, an organization called Color Lines investigated fatal police shootings in 10 cities around the United States. What they found is that there was a disproportionately high number of African Americans in every one of these states that had been killed. The highest number they found in New York, San Diego, and Las Vegas. The Malcolm X Grassroots Committee, they did a study that they called Ghetto Storm 2012. And in this study, they found that every 28 hours in 2012, someone employed or protected by the U.S. government killed a black man, woman, or child every 28 hours. Michael Brown is an example of African Americans killed by government officials, but the African Americans killed by government officials are not just poor, because we have this image of, the poor guy hanging on the corner, maybe in a little bit of trouble, X, Y, Z, because this is the picture that's been painted for us by the media. However, Hollywood, Riverside, California, and Prince George's County, which is a Maryland suburb and the most affluent county in the United States for African Americans, have all had wealthy African Americans gunned down by police. These African Americans that are gunned down, they're often unarmed. That's what this is all about. And I just want to share and honor them some examples of what we're talking about. August 5th, Beaver Creek, Ohio. 22-year-old John Crawford killed in a Walmart. He picked up a toy gun to see what it was, to play with it, to look at it, maybe for his kid, maybe for his cousin. But picking up that toy gun caused him to be shot down by a policeman who had come to the Walmart to explore, hearing that there was a violent black man in the back waving a weapon. before he even got close to him, he was shot. The last words from John Crawford were, "It's not real." It's not real. He told them it's not real. They didn't hear him. July 17th, New York, 43-year-old Eric Garner broke up a fight. And after he broke up a fight, the police were there. And the police decided that they were going to tase and choke and take everybody down that they could. They placed an illegal chokehold on this gentleman who just broke up a fight. And due to this illegal chokehold, this gentleman died. His last words were, "I can't breathe." In Charlotte, North Carolina, 24-year-old Jonathan Farrell was killed after getting into a car accident. After getting into a car accident. This young man climbed out of the back window, beaten, bruised, jacked up, walks up to someone's house and knocks on the door to ask for what?
Help.
Help, of course, right? But, you know, the person's door that he knocked on saw young black man, called the police. And what happened was, not only was this young man tased, after he was tased and put down, he was shot 10 times. After he was tased. If you've ever seen anybody be tased, you know you're not really moving around. You're not really fighting back. You're kind of laying on the ground and you're kicking. But after he was tased, he was shot 10 times. Ariston Waters, right here in Union City, December 14th, 2012, was shot by a policeman when he had no weapon. He was not trespassing. He was just being what we seem to have a problem with in America, which is young, black, and unarmed, right? We all know about Trayvon Martin. Trayvon's last words, "Why are you following me? Get off!" Oscar Grant, Fruitvale Station, the movie was made about him. His last words were, "They're beating us up for no reason. Let me call you back." There's so many more stories like this. I could really literally go on for hours, and it's sad, but it's true. Unarmed black people are being killed by the very individuals who have sworn to protect them. There's a problem. It's not real. I can't breathe. Why are you following me? Get off. Some of the last words that mothers, wives, or girlfriends will ever hear, because these gentlemen were young, black, and unarmed. Let me talk about black. This is done by design. It's supported by stand your ground laws, among others, and it's also enforced by paramilitary tactics from police. The reason I say this is done by design is because we have a system of racism, colonialism, capitalist exploitation here in the United States. And in order to maintain this system, the United States maintains this network of repressive enforcement organizations. And you're like, what's that, repressive enforcement organization? Well, it's really simple. You'll recognize some of these. The police, FBI, Homeland Security, CIA, Secret Service, prisons, private security companies, mass surveillance and mass incarceration, exacerbating the school-to-prison pipeline. All of these entities that exist are tainted by the racism that comes with being an American in the United States. At some point in time, it was indicated to them that black people's lives weren't worth as much as other people's lives. All of these people in all of these organizations. Now we can say I was taught to think differently, my mom didn't teach me, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, if you ever enjoyed the media in the United States, you have been given the implicit bias that there's something wrong with black folk. Y'all, they're saying like, first of all, we're stupid. Second of all, we're just raggedy. Third of all black men are robbing people, right? Because this is the image that we receive. Dr. Philip Goff noted in his research that African American boys, and when I say boys, I mean from the age of 5 to 12, are often viewed as being older than their chronological age. He did a study where he laid out a bunch of pictures of black boys. How old do you think he is? How old do you think he is? How old do you think he is? Same thing with white boys. Everybody knew how old the little white boys were. But the little black boys, unfortunately, they truly believed were older than they were. Now, what's that all about? How can you look at a little boy who's 6 years old and call him 12? How can you look at a 12-year-old and call him 16? That happened in the course of this study. Another doctor, Carell and his colleagues, they noticed that the police are more likely to view African American males as dangerous and holding weapons despite being unarmed. We see that this is true because we see the police overacting again and overreacting again and again and again in situations involving African Americans. And you wonder, given society and how things are presented to us, and given the findings of these studies, you don't have to wonder, I should say, why so many police say the subject was suspicious, or I thought he had a gun, when he was sitting on the corner minding his business, or sitting at his house minding his business, or walking down the street minding his business, all of which have taken place. Basically, racism in society conditions people, and it conditions the police to assume that black people are violent to begin with. Now you have to ask, where does this conditioning come from and how can we stop it? Very briefly, I'll say you have to realize that this has to start very young, because from a very young age, people are being indoctrinated with this information. Now, the thing that's interesting, y'all, when I say this is by design, I want you to understand that we have science, hard science, that proves the existence of this racial profiling, discrimination, and murder. Let's call it what it is, murder. Even though we have this research, what's being done? How many cultural sensitivity classes are policemen required to take? Are teachers required to take? Is anybody required to take? How many neighborhood watch people are required to take? So it's by design. Stand Your Ground laws created to support the design. In Stand Your Ground law states, the shooting of a black person is found to be justifiable 17% of the time by the court. The shooting of a white person is found to be justifiable 1% of the time in Stand Your Ground states. In non-Stand Your Ground states, the shooting of a black person is found to be justifiable in 8% of all cases. White people, 1%. I guess it's never the white man's fault. But what you need to understand is that justifiable homicides increased by 8% in states with Stand Your Ground laws, like Georgia. The Georgia Senate pushed for a repeal of Georgia's Stand Your Ground law. That means we got a few senators up there in Atlanta who have enough sense to say we need to stop this. But immediately after they pushed for a repeal, the Georgia House put forth a proposal to expand the law. Let's make it deeper. Let's make it more intense. Let's make it happen. Despite efforts in several states, y'all seen the marches, y'all seen Al Sharpton, y'all seen the whole 9 yards. Despite these efforts, nowhere in any state has a stand your ground law been repealed. Just something to think about. Paramilitary tactics from police are used to enforce the design. When I say paramilitary tactics, this has been talked about a lot in the media lately. You used to see police, they had on their hat, a badge, and a gun. You see police now, and they look like they're about to storm Iraq, right? Iraq. They have gas masks on, and they have body armor on, and they come in these big armored trucks that are built for nuclear explosions and everything else. Now, you have to ask yourself, why does a policeman need all of that? Where did it come from? What is it all about? When policemen are offered materials such as that I'm talking to you about, when they use them, what happens is they come to perceive themselves as soldiers, not as policemen. And what you need to understand about policemen is a number of them are either ex-soldiers or wanted to be ex-soldiers. So you're triggering something in people who wanted that in the first place. Right? There was a police chief in New Haven who was offered all of this paramilitary gear for his unit. And what he said was, I turned it all down because it feeds a mindset that you're not a police officer serving a community, you're a soldier at war. Officers have tanks now, they have drones, automatic rifles, planes, helicopters. They go through military boot camp style training. We must ask, what's the purpose of so much militarization? And it's only to enforce the design. So, we would like to believe that it's not real. We know that a black man in the U.S. is not allowed to breathe, is constantly being followed, and we need the U.S. to just get off African Americans. So what can we do? Because that's what's important, right? What we can do. I have a bit of a double consciousness about this. W.E.B. Du Bois talked about a double consciousness. I'm sorry, Du Bois, because I always say Du Bois and they tell me it should be Du Bois. And his double consciousness is kind of the same thing for me, meaning that you're dual-minded, meaning that you're living in two worlds at once. I would love to tell you all that the answer to this is get out and vote and change the structure of the people who represent you, and it'll all be great. I would love to tell you that, but it's not true. I would love to tell you that you need to get out into the wilderness and create your own and make it happen for the black community so the black community can stand by itself and be strong. True. That might take a little while to rebuild a totally new society for white people, right? So, what I have to say to you is I have double consciousness because what I'm telling you to do is vote. I want you to do both. When people of African ancestry are killed as frequently as they have been here in America, it's nothing but state-sponsored terrorism. So therefore, we have to fight back. Youth were a very big part of the civil rights movement. Anybody know why the youth were such a big part? The next generation, that's true. That has something to do with it. What else? The integration. Yeah, that was an important point then, the integration of the schools. Anybody else? Keep the legacy going, that's true. But there was actually a much deeper purpose in using young people in the civil rights movement. Birmingham, Alabama, SCLC, they decided that when people started getting arrested and things started going down because they've been doing this bus boycott for quite some time now, People were losing their jobs, people were getting killed, people were getting arrested. So they said, how can we do this so it will be less damaging to families? Because if you have a family of 3 and dad gets thrown in jail, nobody eats, right? You have a family of 2, mom gets thrown in jail, nobody eats. So how does this work? The leadership decided that the best way was to involve young people, very much like yourselves, right? And so parents could continue working, and the young African Americans could serve the necessary jail time. Now hear me when I say that, because that sounds a little funny. Your parents are signing you up to serve jail time. What is that all about? This is not something that you have meetings and rallies and chants about and you just drop it. This is not a short sprint. This is a long distance run. And when I say this, what I mean is creating an equal society for African Americans and other people of color. It's a long road to hoe. These people knew that. And they were willing to die for it, and they were willing to sacrifice their children. And their children were willing to be sacrificed. On May 2nd, 1963, 959 children were arrested. College students, high school students, junior high, and even elementary school students marched out of their schools in protest, knowing they would be arrested. A few days later, actually the next day, 1,000 more children marched to protest. So they took that first 900, they put them in jail. 1,000 more came back out. We were serious. We wanted change, and we were ready to do what it took to get it. Imagine 5, 6, 12, 13-year-old students being shot in the street with fire hoses, guns, dogs. They really literally sit dogs on small children in order to clear them, in order to stop this pushing back that community was doing. Because if that community was successful, oh God, we may have to desegregate all over the United States, right? We can't have that. So they fought back pretty hard. By May 6th, 2,500 blacks, 2,000 of them children, had been arrested. By that time, the pressure was so great from other countries and other states that Birmingham broke down, afraid that people would come and riot and tear their city apart. They agreed to integrate. The young people did that. The young people made the difference, but the thing about it is the young people had to be willing to sacrifice. It's not fun getting put in jail. It's not fun being bit by a dog. It's not fun being chased down the street with a nightstick, right? But they did that because they believed that something needed to change. I've been looking at a lot of people your age, and I'm seeing a lot of momentum and a lot of movement because you know something needs to change. You know it's not right, don't you? Yeah. As young people, you can be both foot soldiers, those people who get sacrificed, who are in front of the guns or in front of the dogs, but you can also be officers in training, people who are getting ready to be the next generation that takes people forward. That's you, right where you are, right now, today. And as college students, you are the officers in training. And you're the officers in training who work with or who can work with the high school students, the middle school students, the elementary school students who can reach out to try to make that change. So, make a change. Great. But what kind of change should we make? What should happen? I believe that we should demand that law enforcement should raise awareness of the very real presence of implicit bias and racism within the police force, within the schools, with teachers, within many other government structures. Now, once they realize that people with marginalized identities are being discriminated against like they don't already know, but once we get it out there, right, what may happen then is we then need to push They know it now. Okay, what do? There needs to be some training, y'all. There is absolutely no diversity training for professors at Clayton State University. There is no diversity training for teachers at Lovejoy High School, which is down the road a bit. There is no diversity training for Clayton County policemen, no serious diversity training. They have a day where they sit around and check off a box. But that real diversity training where you get in and you get deep and you talk about your prejudices and you figure out how you deal with them, doesn't happen. We should demand that it happen. I know you gotta be tired. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Finally, community policing. Nobody can keep check on what happens in our community better than we can. We should demand that the policemen are from our community if they're in our community, because they have a much larger reason to treat us like human beings, right? We should demand that citizens' councils are able to evaluate incidents such as the incident that just took place with Michael Brown and recommend an outcome. What I want to say to you, y'all, is I'm going to leave you with a charge. It's real simple, real simple. I want us to take it past the rallies. I want us to take it past the meetings. Young ladies of Zeta Phi Beta, even though this is phenomenal, I want us to take it away from here and do something afterward. Do something else. Think about the charges that I put forward. Come up with charges of your own, but do something. Like I said earlier, it's a long distance race. It's not a sprint. You must become involved. Whether you're in the system, working to register voters, working to talk to politicians, maybe being a politician yourself, or whether you're outside the system, creating a space of our own for African Americans or other people of color. Either way, you must become involved. You must go where it fits for you. If you're one of those conservative people and you're like, I don't want to move too far out of the box, that's cool. Register people to vote. If you're one of those Angela Davis people that always has your fist in the air and you're ready to take everybody down, then start talking about how you can have community schools in which you educate young men to avoid this. Community schools in which you educate youth on how to push back against the racism that's facing them in everyday lives. You must become involved. You need to read up, which means find out what's going on, what are the details of all of this. After you learn that, you need to stand up because you can't do anything sitting down, right? And then after you stand up, because you know at a rally, we're standing up, we're cheering, right? After you stand up, you must act out. And I mean act out like a 3-year-old throwing a temper tantrum. Act out until you see something change. Now, I don't want to just leave you with this generic statement, act out. What does that mean? What is she telling me to do? I'm going to list a number of organizations for you. If you happen to be in that organization, please feel free to raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. If you are not in that organization or any of the others, I want you to find out how to do so. Because each of these organizations that I'm listing right now, they're pushing back. They're fighting back. They are throwing a temper tantrum about what's happening here for African Americans in the United States. National Action Network, NAACP, Let Us Make Men, Occupy Atlanta, the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, the Revolutionary Communist Party, and the Vote, Baby, Vote. Thank you. Note, I listed a number of organizations. You got one sister who's acting. Now I know that you're a Zeta, and I'm a Delta, and he's an Alpha, and we do that, and that's what we do. And you're doing to make change within your space, I see that. But after you talk about it, what are you going to do? I cannot stress that enough. What are you going to do? African Americans have long been the social conscience of people in this country, right? Because we've been so mistreated, people look at what happens to us and they go, oh my God, this is a horrible thing. We say, yes, it is horrible. And then, we go on to discuss it. We're the social conscious. We're also the transformative agents of change, because the only real large social movement in the United States that's had success has been what? The civil rights movement. The only one. Guess who did that? We did that, y'all. We did that, right? Remember what it really means to be young, black, and unarmed. It doesn't mean that you're a victim. It means that you're young, so you got the energy to jump in there and push back. It means you're black, so you have a history of that behind you, and you have places to go to understand how that took place in the past. And you're unarmed with weaponry, but you are armed with intelligence. And don't let anyone tell you you're not. You can make a movement happen, not a rally happen, not a meeting happen, but a movement happen. We call them movements because you're moving, right? Continue to demand equitable treatment under the laws of our country, because we deserve it, and it is our country, and we helped build it, and we should be treated equally. Continue to speak intelligently, be brave against the injustice that happens to our people. But most of all, what I want you to do is to continue